Woman Expressed, because this world needs women unafraid of their own magic. Welcome to the show, where we explore what it means to be a fully expressed woman, a woman aligned with her desires and dreams, a woman who knows her potential is well within reach. Here, magic happens. We are back, baby. It has been a hot minute since I spoke to you in this way. Life has been lifing. Things have been happening. The unfoldings are unfolding. But I decided it was just about time we hopped back on the podcast train with a new name, with a new vibe, with a new me. Let's see what unfolds. Thank you for being here. Welcome to Woman Expressed. I figure it's best, before I go into me in the last few years and the journey, which I will get to today, I want to open the space by exploring this name change from Love Among Us to Woman Expressed. I feel like if you follow me or have engaged with me in any way, this title feels very on brand. My page is about self-expression, about women recognizing the power that they hold, about the sacred sisterhood and community and togetherness that unfolds when we give ourselves space to be exactly who we are and to express our truth in any given situation. So it felt perfectly fitting to welcome this new era with a name that feels the most me imaginable. Woman Expressed. Because a woman in her expression is a force to be reckoned with. A woman in her expression is the greatest gift we can give to humanity. A woman in her expression is true liberation embodied. And if this world doesn't need more liberated, embodied women, I don't know what it needs. And I sat with the fact that it has been over a year since I've recorded a podcast episode, maybe close to 2 years. And what came through was that the podcasts I was creating, the brand I had created, just weren't in the deepest resonance with what I wanted to talk about. I was creating because I wanted to get amazing guests and I wanted to talk to beautiful people, which is awesome. But it didn't feel like what I actually needed to be doing for me, nor did it feel like what I needed to be doing for my audience. And that doesn't mean I'm not going to have some amazing guests on here eventually, but really what feels necessary is that I sit here in front of this camera, in front of this microphone, and share the deepest truths of my heart, my experience, my roller coaster of a ride that is womanhood. Because women need spaces to come together, to permit each other to be, to welcome the fullness of the human experience together in a way that women really only know how. Now, if you're a man listening, amazing, welcome. I'm a woman. I can't speak to being a man, so I'm going to talk about being a woman and what that's like. And that doesn't mean you can't gain something from being here as well. Woman Expressed. It feels like a landing place for everything I've culminated over the last 2 years and everything I'm wanting to bring to the table going forward. If you are a woman who cares about humanity, who cares about the collective, who cares about planet Earth, who wants to make a positive impact on this planet, who knows they're made for bigness, who knows their voice is meant to be heard far and wide, who knows their message is meant to be felt by the masses, you are in the right place. Because we actually have a moral imperative to show up to humanity, to show up in our rawness, to show up in our authenticity for, first of all of the humans on planet Earth who do not have the privilege, but also for ourselves and our own sense of liberation. Because if we want a free world, we must cultivate freedom within first, within ourselves, then within our communities, then within the collective global scale. I want this to be a space where we remember that it's safe to be who we are, that our fullness is welcome, that our messiness is encouraged, that our imperfect perfection is the only way forward. The only way forward. I don't think we're living in a timeline where we want you poised and perfect anymore. I feel like the paradigm is very much shifting, and we have a choice right here and right now to be a part of that paradigm shift where we really say, hey, I'm going to be exactly who I am. I don't care what you think about me. I don't care what you expect of me. I care about feeling so nourished and true and whole in my fullness, my being, my expression, that I couldn't possibly live any other way. Knowing that my too muchness is probably going to be too much for a lot of people. Knowing that my too muchness is going to freak people out or trigger people or make people question themselves or me. I think that's a gift. I think we need more spaces where humans, but also women, are showing up to that rawness, to that fullness, to that messiness. So that's why I'm here. That's what we're going to do. We're going to talk a lot about the inner workings of what it means to uncage. We're going to talk a lot about the inner workings of what it means to truly be free in this body and then in this world. We're going to talk about what it looks like to take your dreams seriously, to take your potential seriously, what it looks like when you show up in devotion to your highest potential, no matter what anyone else says around you, no matter how much or little sense it makes to anyone, including yourself. We're going to talk about being delusional as the best strategy there is to getting what you want out of life. We're going to talk about taking leaps, leaning into edges, getting uncomfortable, growth, healing. I'm going to talk a lot about my past experiences and lessons I've learned along the way and recommendations for how to live the truest life you can possibly live. I'm also going to bring on some really amazing women who I feel really honored and blessed to call my friends, my best friends, to share their wisdom with you too. We'll talk about the womb and the voice and the heart, the mind-body-spirit connection, somatics, cyclical living and nature, freedom, sovereignty, branding, marketing. We'll get into the business side of things too. All of this is just a part of being an expressed woman, because when you're an expressed woman, the possibilities are endless, the doors open, the spaces become, the magic happens. So thank you for being here on episode 1, part 2 of my podcast. And if you did tune in to Love Among Us, thank you. While there were only 26 episodes of that podcast, I really got to connect with some epic humans. They were beautiful conversations. That was a beautiful season of my life. And I'm also like, who is that girl? Who was she? I don't really know her anymore. And I love her so much. But I feel like I'm an entirely different being than who I was when I recorded Love Among Us. So I'm very excited, not only for me to experience what I have to offer in this season of life, because who knows, these are just going to be channeled. I'm not preparing in any way. I'm just here for the ride. But also what wants to emerge, what wants to be brought forward in these spaces, and how much I've shifted in my experience the last few years. I feel like I'm an entirely different human being, and that's the point, isn't it? If we're not an entirely different human than we were 2 years ago, what are we up to? And I think as we get older, something that's really landed with me is I will be who I am for the rest of my life. I know myself. I know my core values. I know what I stand for. I know what I'm against. I know what I love. I know what I want to call into my life and what I have no space for. And I don't believe that will change much for the rest of my life. Knowing myself in this way, knowing these core values, allows everything else to shift constantly, because I'm constantly saying yes to new opportunities that come my way, constantly saying no immediately to things that don't serve anymore. It opens new doors. It closes old doors. It welcomes so many miraculous, spontaneous, serendipitous occasions, experiences, people, interactions, while simultaneously keeping this streamlined pillar of who I am and what I know about myself as the essence of me. And I think it's such a beautiful thing, this aging process of knowing yourself even deeper, even deeper, even deeper, and welcoming the constant change of knowing yourself so well, and shedding the old skin and letting go of the old layers and welcoming the newness over and over and over again. I feel like I'm changing every single day, every single minute, every single hour. And it's such a gift to welcome that without fear, to welcome that without attachment, to be so consumed by the present moment and the unknown and the trust and surrender of what happens when you just let life move you instead of forcing life or chasing life or trying to move the mountain instead of letting the mountain shift in its own time. We can't control much, but we can control how we feel about ourselves and how we take action from that place. And I feel like when you let that land, when you allow that to sink into your body, everything else becomes a lot easier. I suppose I will kick off the rest of this episode by giving the cliff notes of the journey I've been on the last year and a half since I recorded the last episode of Love Among Us. There's no way I can fit even close to that amount of information in one episode, but before we dive into all the things, I want to just give a life update, because why not? So I guess where I can begin is last summer. I don't know the last time I recorded an episode, but I do think it was before last summer. Last summer, I found myself in Europe at a magical place called The Garden, a co-living community in the lush, delicious forest of northern Portugal, just having spent a month in Ibiza and feeling very much in my spiritual bubble. I love Ibiza. I love the humans on Ibiza. It's also a bubble, and I felt very in it, very a part of the bubble, very connected to my ways of thinking and the ways of people very like me, very like-minded humans to me. And so I arrived at this beautiful community, and my immediate thought process was, this place isn't for me. I'm not going to be inspired here. I was only planning to stay 6 days, and then I was going back to Ibiza. So I said, you know what? Let me just be here. Let's see what's up. But I don't know about this place. What a gift. What a gift to be humbled by life. I was humbled so deeply by people who were nothing like me, except in the ways that matter most: core values, kindness, regulated nervous systems, nonviolent communication. Those were the ways in which I found similarities to the people I met in this space. And otherwise, there was so much difference and so much nuance with such brilliant, intelligent, profound human beings that I got knocked on my ass in the best way imaginable. By that, I mean that I was so confronted by the fact that I was living in a paradigm of such like-mindedness that I had no challenge to my belief systems. I was living so deeply entrenched in my own beliefs about what was right, what was wrong, spirituality, consciousness, my life, how I was meant to exist, how I was meant to approach reality, that I had lost sight of the fact that there is a wide, beautiful range of human beings on this planet who are going to provide you with even more value by being different than you. And it made me realize that I needed to get the hell out of my bubble, and fast. That 6-day journey ended up being a 2-month journey. I canceled all of my plans. I turned my phone off for pretty much the entire time that I was there. And what unfolded next was one of the most important periods of my adult life by far. It was a complete stripping of ego, of material, of attachment, of what I thought was right for me. A complete stripping of the stories that I kept around what it meant to be a spiritual being, what it meant to be a conscious being, what it meant to be a being of value and substance. I did not realize how much value I was placing on clout and social media following numbers and the value that person could provide me. I didn't realize the level of selfishness that I had towards my relationships, towards my opinions of other beings, until I landed in this space and realized that the greatest value we could ever give humanity or each other is our authentic expression, exactly as we are. And so what unfolded in the next 2 months was the deepest relating I've ever experienced, the most beautiful and profound friendships I've ever gotten to carry with me and hold and experience. A 14-song indie album poured out of me as someone who had loved music for years but was deeply afraid of using her voice. That part is much because of the putting the phone away. What a gift. I would observe Shabbat, if you will, and put my phone away before the sunset Friday night, and then I wouldn't turn it back on till Monday morning. And on Monday to Thursday, my screen time was about 60 minutes a day, just for the stuff that I had to do, the commitments I had previously made. Otherwise, I went completely ghost from the internet, from anyone outside of my 10-meter radius. And it was absolutely incredible. I performed for the first time twice. I reconnected with my creative expression in the deepest way I could have possibly done. It changed me. It completely, completely changed me. And I am who I am today because of that experience, and I am forever grateful for it. Beyond that European summer journey, I came back to the States and my Lyme disease acted up really bad. For those who don't know this about me, I have, well, you know what? Language matters. I had Lyme disease. I don't know if I have it anymore. I'm going with I don't have it anymore. I haven't experienced any symptoms in over 10 months. I feel incredible. I don't resonate with the diagnosis. I never did, but I did allow it to put me into victim mentality, which, to be fair, if you've experienced Lyme symptoms, brutal, absolutely brutal. So I had to go through this process and I'm grateful for it, but we no longer resonate with Lyme disease. Thank you very much. But anyways, I returned from Europe. My knees started acting up for me. Joint pain was the medium through which this Lyme expressed itself through me. And so I had 10 out of 10 pain in my knees. It was awful, absolutely unfun. I couldn't bend, I couldn't walk. I got my knee drained and like 3 syringes of fluid came out of it. I was screaming a lot. It was not fun. I decided to move to LA, to Topanga. An opportunity arose for me to move into my friend's old house. I said, fuck it, let's go. I always wanted to live in California. The second I got there, bless Topanga, bless the humans there. What a gift, a really special place. For me, it was a fuck no. My body was screaming at me the entire time I was there. My knees, the pain I experienced in my knees lasted for 2 months. Previously, I had had 2 episodes of Lyme where the symptoms lasted about 10 days and then they went away. I moved to LA. The symptoms didn't go away for 2 months. I was exhausted. I was bedridden. I did read 120 fantasy novels, so that was important, which ultimately led to me writing a book. So grateful for this chapter, as hard as it was. I was also a complete victim, so that didn't help my case. But sometimes we got to be a victim to realize that we need to stop being a victim. I suffered for 2 months, and then the fires happened. And about a mile from my house, things were burning. And by the grace of God, I flew to Panama the night before the fires ensued for 2 of my best friends' weddings, who, if you're watching this video, I am living with right now. And this is our office. So another major gift, which I'll talk about later. I flew for the wedding. 2 things happened. 1, the fires, the day after I left. That felt like divine timing for me to be not experiencing the dysregulation and chaos of the fires, up close and personal. The second thing that happened was the day I landed in Panama, my knees stopped hurting. My knees stopped hurting. After 2 months of suffering, gone. All of the pain, gone. So for me, that was the aha I needed. LA was kicking me out already, but that was the moment where I was like, I'm not going back. I'll get my stuff if my house doesn't burn down. Fingers crossed. But otherwise, LA and I are done. We're breaking up. Very short situationship. And so I spent the month in Panama. It was beautiful. I had no pain. I was feeling the best I had felt in a long time. And then I booked a flight to LA. I packed up my stuff and I went home. I stayed in New York for a bit. Then I landed in Costa Rica. I spent a month in Chiripo on a river with a few of my best friends. And it was a gift. It was super beautiful. It was just super creative portal, lots of music, getting back into movement, regulating my nervous system after the chaos that was LA. And yeah, just sinking into presence. And then the next month was spent at a retreat in Mexico, which was full spectrum. I got really, really sick for 2 weeks. I could not keep a single thing in my body. I thought I was going to have to go to the hospital. I was quite literally empty. There was beauty to this emptiness. I noticed that all the pain in my body went away completely. Any neck pain, any shoulder pain. Like, it was a nice affirmation that I could feel really good in my body, even though in that moment I was feeling depleted and unwell. I was also staying at a location with no electricity. for the most part, compost toilets, showers heated by fire, fireplaces, candlelight, and the stillness and the quiet really gave me the space to write my fantasy novel. I had the idea to write the fantasy novel in Costa Rica because I started the Artist's Way, which is such an important part of my creative and expressive journey. I'm going to do an entire episode praising Julia Cameron and the Artist's Way, also praying that she writes the foreword to my book someday, because that's a queen and I love her. Yeah, I started the Artist's Way with the intention of reconnecting to my creativity. I felt pretty disconnected from it, and what I found was immense remembrance. Remembrance is the best way that I can put it. I remembered who the fuck I am, which is an artist. And I always had the idea, after reading my 120 fantasy novels last year, that my own fantasy novel would be like a midlife journey. I'm going to write it at 50 when I have more experience, when I know what I'm doing. I'm not a writer. And I started the Artist's Way, and I realized, why am I writing a fantasy novel? Am I writing it to be good, or am I writing it to create a world of my own, to use my imagination, and to have fun? Because if it's the latter, why can't I start it now? And start it I did. And when I went to Mexico for 1 month, I wrote 100,000 words of my fantasy novel, which is absurd if you ask me, but it just flowed. I didn't want it to be good. I just wanted it to be. And now she exists, and I'm working with an editor, and one day she's going to be birthed into this world. So much magic happens when you just let your expression move through you without trying to tame it or claim it or shape it or have it executed in a way that you want it to, instead of just letting it flow the way it's meant to be flowing, which is naturally, intuitively, presently. So after that month in Mexico and the book deep dive, what did I do? I went back to New York to visit my family, as I do a few times a year, and then I went back to the garden. And this time I invited one of my very best friends, Samantha, to come with me. And I have this relationship with the garden where I feel very tied to it and connected to it, and what's the word I'm looking for? Protective over who comes there. So it felt like a big deal to invite someone to come with me, despite the fact that I was going to the garden to support them in marketing. I find it very funny that I was supporting them in growth, and then in my own life was like, I don't know if I want to bring anyone here. It's my sacred place. But anyways, my dear sis Samantha and I went to the garden together, and did we ever go on the most ridiculous, profound journey? One of the most profound journeys of my life, of remembering who we are and returning to nature as the ultimate healer, and body as the ultimate healer, and art as the ultimate healer, falling in love in sisterhood, and deepening into best friendship, and exploring Portugal, and connecting with humans, and singing so many songs, singing every single day, and being connected to some of the most epic musicians and epic artists imaginable. I ended up going home for a bachelorette party for one of my very best friends who was getting married. I went to Japan with my family. Those were beautiful. And I would say the next most important thing that happened was being connected with this group of traveling chefs and caterers and artists who came to the garden to cook for the weekend, and brought me along on their journey to Goat Festival in Portugal, where I once again reawakened to the fact that my dharma is to be a musician. My dharma is to express myself through art and share it with the world. And watching those DJs perform, and the workshops and the vibe and the humans, I was just like, this is the space I want to be a part of. These are spaces I want to create. This is my dharma. This is what I'm meant to be doing on planet Earth. And ultimately, this cooking group led me to another festival in France, where I got to support them with social media, which led to even more magic unfolding, and the greatest experience that I've had in a long time, which was meeting my now partner, who is a precious being, and someone I did not expect to meet, someone I did not expect to deepen with the way I have. But life does present you with magic when you are entirely who you are. And if there's any piece of advice I could give you, if you're wanting to call in love, friendship, community, opportunity, abundance, it's to be completely yourself, because you are your greatest magnet and greatest repellent for what is meant for you and what is not meant for you. And if you hide behind masks and cages, you won't repel the people not meant for you, nor will you magnetize those that are. The greatest ally you have in calling in your people, your tribe, your love, your abundance, your opportunity, is being so completely yourself that you scare away anyone that's not meant for you. And that's what I did. I showed up to this event in full authenticity. I was like, I'm not here for anything but expression and deepening into my body. That's why I wanted to go. I wanted to be so free and so expressed. And I was. And I met my love, and I met so many amazing people, and I got connected with the people who run the music for these events, and they invited me to perform this coming summer. And it was just such confirmation that I'm exactly where I need to be, expressing myself, being who I am, sharing my truth. And that ultimately led me to here, Panama. I agreed to move back to Playa Venal, the place that I started my business in 2022, the place that catalyzed a lot of my journey as an adult. And now I'm in this beautiful villa overlooking the ocean, living with two of my best friends. This office is insane. I'm recalibrating my entire business. There's just so much magic unfolding in my life right now. And it's all because I said yes to self-expression. I said yes to being myself. I said yes to the endless possibilities of life. And that's what I'm here for. That's what Woman Expressed is about. Thank you for tuning into episode 1. You'll be hearing from me weekly with all the magic. And I'll talk to you soon.